Back in their room, the three of them settled into their beds. The tension in the air gradually faded, replaced by exhaustion. Fong let out a slow breath, his voice cutting through the silence. "We need to focus on our main mission," he said, his tone calm but firm. "In the morning, we'll start gathering information about the secret organization we're here to investigate." Ronan gave a small nod, his usual energy subdued by fatigue. Kira, lying on his back, stared at the ceiling. He knew Fong was right, but his mind kept drifting. So much had changed since he arrived at Crimson Lotus Academy, and now another fight was on the horizon. One by one, they drifted into sleep. As Kira's body rested, his consciousness was pulled into a familiar realm. The shift was instant. One moment he was in his bed, the next he stood within the ancient temple. The massive stone pillars stretched toward a dark sky, and the air hummed with a deep, primal energy. The spirits of his warrior ancestors whispered in the wind, their presence both comforting and daunting. At the center of it all stood Johan. His father's imposing figure was illuminated by flickering torches. He wore a sleeveless tunic, his muscular arms crossed over his chest. His black eyes met Kira's with a gaze both stern and proud. "You can train here while your body rests," Johan said, his deep voice resonating through the temple. Kira straightened, feeling the weight of expectation settle on his shoulders. He clenched his fists, sensing the untapped power within him. "I'm ready, father." Johan studied him for a moment before nodding. "Good. Your enemies are strong, and you must be stronger." He took a step forward. "A warrior must learn to control time, not in the way mages do, but through perception. You will learn to see everything in slow motion, reacting at superhuman speed. No opponent, no matter how fast, will ever catch you off guard." Kira barely had time to process Johan's words before his father suddenly lunged at him. The world blurred as Johan's fist came toward his face, too fast to dodge. Kira braced for impact, but at the last second, the punch slowed. He saw every detail, the tightening of Johan's knuckles, the shifting of his weight. His instincts screamed at him to move, but his body wasn't fast enough. The next thing he knew, he was on the ground, his cheek stinging. "Too slow," Johan said. "Again." Kira gritted his teeth and stood. He wasn't going to fail. Johan continued, his voice unrelenting. "As the last of our race, you've inherited all our powers and techniques. Your body is nearly immune to most kinds of magic, but that won't save you if you don't master your abilities." The words hit Kira hard. The last of their race. He'd known, of course, but hearing it from his father carried a weight he hadn't been prepared for. Was he worthy of that legacy? Could he live up to it? But there was no time for doubt. Johan stepped back, gesturing for Kira to prepare himself. "We begin now." Kira tightened his stance, determination burning in his chest. If he was the last, then he would make sure he was the strongest. Johan led Kira toward the towering statue near the temple gate. The massive stone warrior stood with his fists clenched, muscles rippling beneath the surface as if he could spring to life at any moment. The sheer presence of the figure radiated strength and mastery. "This is Gara," Johan said, his voice filled with reverence. He was a legendary warrior, feared and respected for his ability to fight barehanded. He never needed weapons. His body was his greatest weapon. "Call his name, and he will train with you." Kira swallowed, stepping forward. The sheer size of the statue made him feel small, but he refused to back down. Placing his palm against the cold stone, he took a steady breath. "Gara," he called, his voice firm with resolve. A deep rumble filled the air as cracks spread across the stone figure. Light seeped through the fractures, and with a thunderous shift, the statue began to move. The stone that once formed his massive form shrank and reformed, molding into flesh and muscle as Gara's true shape emerged. The once stone-like skin softened into living, human flesh, and his towering, statue-like form shrank to a tall but human-sized warrior. Dust and stone fragments crumbled to the ground as Gara took his first step, his glowing eyes locking onto Kira. "Are you ready to fight?" Gara's voice was a deep, resonant challenge, carrying the weight of countless battles. Kira's heart pounded, but he didn't waver. He clenched his fists, determination burning in his chest. I am. The fight between Kira and Gara began with a whirlwind of movement. Kira, drawing on everything he had learned, launched into a flurry of martial arts techniques. He spun and kicked, his strikes aimed at vital points with the speed and precision of a master. But Gara, unyielding and unmoved, blocked and parried with the ease of a seasoned warrior. Each of Kira's blows was met with a powerful counter, as Gara's fists crashed into Kira's defenses like hammers, sending him stumbling back. Gara moved with a deliberate grace that belied his immense strength. He didn't need to leap or spin. Every step was calculated, every punch and kick delivered with crushing force. Kira barely dodged a devastating roundhouse kick, the wind from it whistling past his ear, and responded with a rapid series of punches aimed at Gara's midsection. But each strike seemed to do nothing more than irritate the legendary warrior. As the battle raged on, Kira realized that his martial arts skills alone wouldn't be enough. He needed more. Recalling the fights he had seen between Ronin and Kai, Kira began to focus inward, drawing on his spiritual energy. It started as a small flicker within him, but as he concentrated, the energy grew, spreading through his body like wildfire. His movements became sharper, his strikes more powerful, and then it happened. His body began to glow. At first, it was a faint light similar to what he had seen in Ronin and Kai. But as Kira continued to harness his energy, the glow intensified, becoming a brilliant, almost blinding light. His spiritual energy wasn't just strong. It was unparalleled, a force unlike anything the world had ever seen. Kira's skin shimmered with a radiant light, far brighter than anything Kai or Ronin had ever produced. Johan, watching from the sidelines, felt a surge of pride. His arms remained crossed, his expression unreadable, but inside, he was in awe. Kira wasn't just using spiritual energy, he was dominating it. His glow wasn't like Kai's or Ronin's. It was something far greater, something unseen in any warrior before him. With his newfound power, Kira moved with incredible speed, his glowing form a blur as he unleashed a relentless assault on Gara. His strikes were now faster, harder, and infused with an energy that crackled through the air. For a moment, it seemed like Kira might have the upper hand, his radiant light cutting through the battlefield. But Gara, ever the unyielding warrior, remained focused. He weathered Kira's assault with the patience of a seasoned fighter, biding his time. When he finally struck back, it was with a devastating blow that sent shockwaves through Kira's glowing form. Despite his speed and power, Kira found himself on the defensive once again, struggling to withstand the sheer physical might of Gara. Gara's movements became more intense, his attacks relentless. He used every ounce of his warrior's strength and experience, crushing Kira's glowing defense with a series of powerful blows. Kira's spiritual energy was incredible, but against Gara's raw power and battle-hardened skill, it was not enough. Kira's glow began to fade. His breath came in ragged gasps. His arms felt heavy. How is he still stronger? As he stumbled back, barely staying on his feet, realization dawned on him. Power alone isn't enough. Strength wasn't just about raw energy or magical enhancement. It was about control, experience, endurance. Gara had shown him the truth. Johan nodded approvingly. This lesson was far more valuable than winning a fight. Kira had incredible potential, but talent alone would never be enough. He had to forge himself into a true warrior, not just one who could shine brightly, but one who could withstand the storm. Johan stepped forward as the fight ended, placing a hand on Kira's shoulder. "You've done well, my son," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've unlocked a power that few could ever dream of. But remember, it is not just the power within you that makes you strong. It is how you use it, and the strength of your heart and mind." Kira nodded, breathing heavily, but with a newfound understanding of what it truly meant to be a warrior. The path ahead would be long and difficult, but with his father's guidance and Gara's lessons, Kira knew he was ready for it. As the intense battle came to a close, Kira stood panting, the remnants of his glowing energy still flickering around him. Gara, who had been an unyielding force throughout the fight, now looked at Kira with a mixture of pride and hope. He saw in Kira the potential to become the strongest of their kind, the last descendant who could carry on the legacy of their warrior race. Gara's stern expression softened, and a rare smile crossed his face. For the first time, Kira felt the weight of the legacy he carried, the responsibility of being the last of their kind. Gara's nod of approval wasn't just a gesture. It was a passing of the torch. With a final look at Kira, Gara turned and began walking back toward the temple's gate. As he reached the spot where he had stood as a statue, he paused, giving Kira one last glance, as if to say, "Continue to grow, and one day, you will surpass even me." Then, with the same quiet dignity he had shown in life, Gara returned to his stone form, standing watch over the temple once more. As Gara returned to stone, Johan stepped forward, his face beaming with pride. "You've done well, Kira," he said warmly. "To see you grow so much, to begin mastering your power. Words can't express how proud I am of you." Kira, still catching his breath, looked at his father and smiled. The exhaustion of the battle was beginning to weigh on him, but the pride in his father's eyes gave him a second wind. Johan placed a hand on Kira's shoulder, his grip firm but comforting. "That's enough for tonight," he said, glancing up at the sky, where the first light of dawn was beginning to break. "It's almost morning. You need to rest, regain your strength. There's much more to learn, but for now it's time to wake up." Kira nodded, feeling the world around him begin to fade as he prepared to return to the waking world. He opened his eyes, not as the same boy who had entered the dream, but as someone who had just unlocked a new part of himself. With one last look at the temple and the stone form of Gara, he closed his eyes, ready to continue his journey when the time was right. As Kira woke up, he noticed that Ronan and Fong were already up and getting ready for the day. Ronan glanced over and grinned. "I was just about to wake you up." Kira stretched and asked, "Are you feeling better now after last night's fight?" Ronan nodded, a confident smile on his face. "Yeah, I'm all good. Mastery of spiritual energy has its perks, helps the body heal fast." Fong then spoke up, "Come on, we need to see Master Wang." The three of them left the room together, heading toward Master Wang's office. As they walked through the halls, Kira couldn't help but notice the whispers that followed them. The rumors of Ronan's defeat were still fresh, and it seemed everyone had something to say. A twinge of irritation burned in Kira's chest, but he swallowed it down, focusing on the task ahead. There would be time for everything else later.